My parents sold your penthouse this morning. My mother said it casually, like she was talking about groceries. For a moment, I thought she was joking. My what? Your penthouse, my father repeated, not even looking up from his phone. The buyer already transferred the money. The room felt strangely quiet after that. I looked from my father to my mother, then to my sister Emily, who was sitting comfortably on the couch, scrolling through her tablet like nothing unusual had happened. You sold my apartment? I asked slowly. My mother sighed, already sounding annoyed. It wasn't just an apartment. It was a solution. A solution to what? To Emily's situation. Emily finally looked up and shrugged. Relax. It's handled. Handled. That word sat heavily in my chest. For the last 5 years, Emily's life had been a long series of situations. Luxury vacations she couldn't afford. Credit cards maxed out on designer brands. 2 failed startups funded almost entirely by our parents. And every time something collapsed, my parents stepped in. But this time, they hadn't used their money. They had used mine. That penthouse was in my name. I said quietly. My father finally looked at me. Your family. Don't make this dramatic. I'm not being dramatic. I replied calmly. I'm asking how you sold something that belongs to me. My mother crossed her arms because Emily needed help. Emily leaned back and stretched like the conversation bored her. It's just a place to live, she said. You're always traveling anyway. The penthouse wasn't just a place to live. It was the first real thing I had bought after years of working 18-hour days, taking contracts no one else wanted, saving every dollar while everyone around me was spending. But none of that seemed to matter here. How much? I asked. 2.3 million, my father said. I blinked. The property alone was worth almost 4 million. You sold it at a loss. We sold it quickly, my mother corrected. Emily's creditors weren't patient. Emily rolled her eyes. God, why are you acting like the world ended? Then she smirked and added, what are you going to do now anyway? My father chuckled. You can stay here for a while if you want. My mother nodded, as if she was offering charity. Yes, until you figure things out. Emily laughed softly. Yeah, unless he's officially a homeless person now. The word echoed in the room. Homeless. No one corrected her. No one even looked uncomfortable. They all just watched me, waiting for the reaction they expected. Anger, shouting, begging. Instead, I stood there quietly. It's strange how people reveal their true opinions when they believe you've lost everything. My mother tapped the table impatiently. Well, say something. I picked up my car keys from the counter. You're leaving? She asked. Yes. My father shook his head. Where exactly are you going, homeless person? For the first time since the conversation started, I smiled. Not out of humor, out of clarity. I'll figure it out. No arguments, no accusations, just silence. I walked toward the door, opened it, and stepped outside. Behind me, I could still hear Emily laughing. They thought they had taken everything from me. They had no idea what I was about to do next. Your one click can keep these stories alive. Subscribe, because every voice deserves to be heard. I didn't call them after that night. Not the next day. Not the next week. Silence has a way of revealing who actually cares enough to break it. My phone stayed quiet. No messages from my parents asking where I was staying. No apology from Emily. The only message I received from home came 3 weeks later. A short text from my mother. Emily says the buyer is complaining about plumbing issues in the penthouse. Did you know about that? I stared at the message for a long moment. Not how are you? Not are you okay? Just plumbing. I didn't reply. Instead, I kept doing what I had been doing long before that dinner. Working. The truth was, my life hadn't actually changed much after losing the penthouse. I had spent the past 7 years building something that rarely required me to stay in one place for long. Most of my work happened across cities, airports, and conference rooms that looked exactly the same everywhere. A home had been a luxury, not a necessity, so I moved into a quiet serviced apartment near the waterfront and went back to my routine. Early mornings, late meetings, projects that demanded more patience than most people were willing to give. But there was something different now, a certain calm. When you stop trying to prove yourself to the people who never believed in you, your energy suddenly has somewhere more useful to go. Months passed. My parents never called. Emily, however, stayed very active online. Her life had always been carefully curated on social media. Pictures of expensive dinners, designer outfits, and captions about living fearlessly. But slowly, the tone began to change. The photos became less frequent. The captions shorter. One afternoon, I noticed something else. The penthouse appeared in the background of one of her photos. Except it looked different. Boxes stacked near the windows. Half-empty shelves. A week later, another post appeared. Emily sitting at a cafe with the caption, "Fresh starts are scary but necessary." Fresh starts. I almost smiled. Word travels quietly in certain circles, especially in industries where money moves faster than reputation. And Emily had unknowingly stepped into one of those circles. Because the man who had bought my penthouse wasn't just a random buyer looking for luxury property. He was a developer, someone who had been negotiating with my firm for months about a much larger project, which meant that eventually our worlds were going to intersect again. Not by design, just by coincidence. Meanwhile, my parents' lives seemed to grow noisier. Occasional updates reached me through distant relatives. Arguments over money. Emily moving back into their house. A lawsuit threat from one of her former investors. I didn't react to any of it. People often assume silence means someone has been defeated. But silence can also mean something else entirely. It can mean you're busy building something that doesn't need their approval anymore. By the time winter arrived, my schedule was full again. New projects, new partnerships, opportunities that would have seemed impossible a few years earlier. And then one morning, my assistant placed a folder on my desk. "Meeting request." She said, "From who?" She turned the page and read the name. The same developer who had purchased my penthouse. Apparently, he wanted to discuss a new collaboration. I looked at the file for a long moment. Life has a strange sense of timing, because according to the attached notes, he planned to bring his current property manager to the meeting, someone who had been handling the penthouse since the purchase. Emily, I closed the folder slowly outside my office window. The city moved exactly the way it always had, busy, loud, unaware of small personal histories unfolding inside it. Somewhere across town, my family probably still believed they had pushed me into a corner. They were still talking about the night I left, still telling their version of the story. But while they were busy explaining my past, I had already built a future they knew nothing about. At the meeting, Emily froze when she saw me leading the deal. I simply said, "Keep the penthouse." I built something bigger,